On today's show, going to continue the Ty Lue conversation. Is he overrated? Does he deserve more blame or the majority of the blame for our loss to the Denver Nuggets? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification bell. Let's get us up to 8,000 subscribers to surpass Locked On Nets and Locked On Spurs. I got my eye on those channels. Shout out Jeff Garcia and the new host of Locked On Nets. But this episode of Locked On Clippers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, this episode is going to continue the Ty Lue discussion. It was inspired by a comment, a very long comment made by a listener, and I'm giving you, let's see what his name is again, at First Sports Guru Your Shine, by answering your question. And it was a very detailed, long question with today's episode. So we're going to be talking about the questions that you asked, Ty Lue's offensive system, his adjustments or lack thereof, and of course the roster and what we can do to get better. So let's begin with the first question that was asked. Tell me if you, Dime Dropper, number one, tell me if you think Ty Lue's offense is diverse enough. To answer this question, we need to take a look at what Ty Lue has done with different rosters. With the Cavs, it wasn't a very diverse offensive scheme. It was Kyrie Irving and LeBron James running a lot of high ball screen. Yes, you saw a little bit of high post stuff through LeBron, but overall, it was making Kevin Love more of a pick and pop 3 guy, kind of, and it wasn't as necessarily a motion scheme or anything of that sort. You know, they were a half court team. LeBron James and Kyrie Irving really, dictated a lot. And they were successful because LeBron James in his prime was on the team. And Kyrie Irving, you could say, was starting his prime. Even though he was young, he was NBA ready right away. So I don't think it was a very diverse offensive scheme. Now, going back to the numbers, the last season that Ty Lue coached the Cavs, they were 5th in offensive rating in the league. 5th. And pace-wise, they were 12th, so around middle of the pack. But that was a team that didn't even have Kyrie Irving on it. So in terms of overall assists for the team teams around the league, the Cleveland Cavaliers were 11th. So again, it wasn't anything too special. Now, if you go back to the previous year, 2017 Cavs, which they had Kyrie Irving, that was his last year on the team, they had a pretty damn good offense, at least in the playoffs that year. In the regular season, they were, and I'm gonna make a point out of this, but they were 23rd. They averaged 23 assists per game in 2017, which was 13th in the league. And if you look at their individual statistics, they were 3rd in offensive rating in the league, middle of the pack, 15th in pace. So again, another top 5 offense, right? Playing in a fairly stagnant system. Now, the previous year, again, 3rd in offensive rating. Now, this is, of course, the 2016 championship Cavs, in which Ty Lue took over middle of the season and went 27-14 in the second half of the season, which is funny because David Blatt in the first half of the season went 30-11. So he actually did better than Ty Lue. But the LeBron James didn't want David Blatt. That's very clear. Everybody knows that now. The players wanted Ty Lue, and they got a championship out of it. Now, again, going back to assists in that offense, Cleveland Cavaliers all the way at 13. So a very consistent number that they're about middle of the pack in assists, but they're a very good offensive team. Why is that? I think the simple brilliance of LeBron James in his prime and Kyrie Irving. There wasn't anything to their offense like that, okay? This was why Ty Lue garnered the reputation of, oh, he was just, letting LeBron coach. Like, he's not a real guy. He's just a figurehead. So then he's the assistant for us with the Clips. We always don't really judge assistants unless we want to for pushing our agendas. Because, for example, Jeff Van Gundy, assistant coaches should get a lot more credit, but they also should get some blame sometimes too, because a lot of the decisions that are made in basketball strategically are with staffs. It's not just the head coach making the decision, even though they do get the final say or the largest say. Now, when Ty Lue took over, I said, if you go back to my post-game recaps on Dime Dropper in 2021, we had a little more off-ball movement than we did with Glenn. We did. One thing that I thought that Ty also did was he empowered Paul George and Kawhi to kind of handle the ball more. And we said, look, we don't really have a true point guard, but let's just make you guys point forward, so to speak. And we really increased the on-ball responsibility of Paul George. And at the time, I was like, nah, we need to decrease Paul George's role on this team. But when you look at the Clippers offense that season, 16th in assists. I'm saying that to say that the ball's not moving like that, right? 16th in assists, but 4th in offensive rating. So what does that sound like? Those Cavs teams. But we don't have an offensive playmaker like a LeBron James, but we have two elite wings at this time, both basically in their primes, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And we weren't a fast team. We were bottom 3 in the league in pace. And I think that's dictated by the roster that we had. Nicholas Batum, Patrick Beverley, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, Old Rondo, Lou Will, Zoo, or any of those guys, fast break kind of players. These guys are all guys that played in half-court offenses throughout their careers, and nobody, except for Terrence Mann, who only started getting playing time more so in the playoffs and later in the season, is somebody that you can really say wants to get out and run. So our team is going to be more of a half-court team with that sort of personnel. And that season, by the way, when it comes to Paul George, he averaged 5 assists a game, whereas the previous year in 2020, he averaged 4 assists a game. So his assist numbers went up. And I thought that Ty Lue, his first season as our coach, he took us from second round exit to our best season in franchise history in terms of playoff finish. And we didn't make that many roster changes. And Kawhi Leonard literally missed the last 2 games of the Jazz series that got us over the hump. So to me, he did a great job of getting the most out of guys. Now, were there mistakes throughout the season? Absolutely. Were there mistakes in the first round against Dallas? Oh my God, yes. We waited a while to make some adjustments, like putting Kawhi Leonard on Luka and not allowing him to switch easily, like not allowing Zubats to switch on to Luka in the pick and roll, stuff like that. Playing Terrence Mann more, leaning into Rondo more in games 3 and 4. Those were his last good games as a Clipper, really, but still, it was relevant at the time. He did a great job, though, in my opinion, that first year. That second year, he did an amazing job as well. Now, when you look at it, and we look at how many games key players missed, Kawhi Leonard doesn't play the entire season. Paul George misses 51 games, and we finished 42 and 40, and we didn't have a good offense, right? We went from fourth in the league in offensive rating in 2021 to 24th in 2022. You know what that tells you? We got worse offensively because our best 2 players are out. There's nothing to do with Ty Lue's scheme. At the end of the day, the scheme is dictated by your personnel. You're not going to have this crazy motion offense with guys that are unwilling to move without the ball or aren't great at it. Ty Lue has said this many times. He says if we don't have a movement team, we have more of an ISO team. In 2023, 16th in offensive rating, bottom 7 in the league in pace. So again, more of a half-court team. There's nobody on our team besides Terrence Mann that wanted to get up and down like that. Bones Highland and Russell. Well, when we added Russell Westbrook, I think we played at a faster pace. Now, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but it wasn't like we had a super motion scheme either. And then when you get James Harden, you're going to be more of an ISO team. It's not going to be as much movement. So to answer the question, overall, is the Clippers offense diverse enough? What do you mean by diversity? Should we have thrown the ball in as Zubats in the post more throughout the season and throughout the years? Probably. I would think so. But in terms of the isolation basketball, the pick and roll basketball, the stagnant offense, that is dictated by our personnel. And if you think that he can just get guys that are making this much money to just buy into a motion system with a lot of on-ball, with a lot of off-ball movement offensively, and then simultaneously have to do what you have to do defensively in this league today at their age, yeah, I don't know how well that's going to go over with players. So it's a different era. You're that disciplinarian coach that just gets whatever he wants because the players don't have a say. That's not the NBA anymore. So for a lot of people that have that old school line of thinking, and I'd like to think I'm a little bit of an old school thinker for my age, you're not understanding what the NBA in 2025 is. We're an offense that doesn't have much movement, doesn't have much of that because we have isolation specialists and a one-man system in James Harden. In Philadelphia, did we see a lot of motion with James Harden? No. In Houston, did we? No. So what makes you think now in Brooklyn we saw some movement off ball with KD and Kyrie, but it's still run through Harden at the top. So I think you got to look at the players more so than anything. But coming up, we're going to talk about adjustments or lack thereof. Does Ty Lue adjust well enough? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right. So that was the answer to the first question. If Ty Lue's offense is diverse enough, it's not going to be diverse when you have these players on your team. So that's that. Secondly, tell me if you think his in-game adjustments are diverse enough or timely enough. Well, again, that's a very broad question. I think the first year he made great adjustments. It just came a little too late sometimes in the series against Dallas, against Utah, and not letting Ivica Zubac switch onto guys like Luka Doncic or Donovan Mitchell. But he ended up going small, and we ended up succeeding in that way. So his adjustments ended up working. Now, as far as the Suns, I mean, it's not like we didn't have injuries in that series. Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac missed some games. We just ran out of gas. You know what I mean? It was just a lot for Paul George. That Suns team without Kawhi Leonard was a better team than us. Paul missed some free throws. That's not really Ty's fault. Following year, I don't really have many complaints. If I went back and checked that Pelicans game, that play-in game that we lost, I might have found something, but that season I thought Ty was great. Now, the year that I really got critical of Ty Lue, where I think he genuinely, his only year as a Clipper coach where I think he was straight up bad, was 2023. His marriage to Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris ended up being very detrimental. His lack of playing Terrence Mann ended up hurting us. It was rough. The naivete that we could get away with not having a center the entire season, it was just terrible. So that was a bad year for him. Bad year for us as an organization. I think to this day, it's got to be the most disappointing season in the history of the Clippers. It's 2023. Because going into it, we had championship expectations. Ty was bad that year. Now, last year, yeah, I think Ty could have done a little better in the playoffs. I think. But remember, he was voted as the coach that makes the best adjustments in the league. I forget going into what season. I'm going to try to pull it up right now. But that's what the other coaches said. You know what I'm saying? They voted Ty Lue as, I think, the coach that makes the best adjustments or something like that. Let's see who won it this year. Which head coach is the best manager and motivator of people? Well, it looks like Ty Lue. This is the 2024-25 GM survey that I'm looking at right now. See, okay, 2023-24. Before the 2023-24 season, Ty Lue was voted as the second best coach in the NBA. Second best coach in the NBA. This is the GM survey, right? This is the NBA GM survey. And then asking which head coach is the best manager / motivator of people, Ty Lue third. And then which head coach makes the best in-game adjustments? Guess who was second? Tyronn Lue. So GMs definitely respect him and think that he does make good adjustments. So that's that. But now, as far as what I think, I mean, in 2023-24, the adjustment I thought was we didn't go into Zubats enough in that series. Playing PJ Tucker. So one thing about Ty is he is such an appeaser or players coach. He really is. He seems to get everybody on his side, but sometimes seems to be to the detriment of the team. Now, I'm not in the locker room, so I can't say whether he's holding people accountable as much as we'd want or not. LeBron James said he does hold people accountable, and the reputation that he came in with was that he does hold people accountable. But I don't know because I'm not in the locker room. I'm not there with the team. But I do feel like he's a very nice guy when it comes to these kind of things. I mean, Paul George had nothing bad to say about him on the way out. Kawhi Leonard has re-signed, and he's been with the same coach for the majority of his tenure outside of the first year with Glenn Rivers. So he clearly likes Ty Lue. James Harden seems to really like Ty Lue. Zubats, even though he can probably say that he's been hard done by at times with the lack of minutes that he got in previous years or lack of touches, seems to love Ty Lue. Nicholas Batum said he saved my career, revived his career essentially. So there's a lot of guys. Marcus Morris, I don't know what his lasting opinion of Ty Lue was. Same with Reggie Jackson. But Ty Lue did a lot for those two. He really rode with them till the end until it was just there was no defense behind it. So he's really done a good job of getting the most out of guys. The one guy you could say maybe not was Luke Kennard. But I don't know if Russell Westbrook has beef with him because it felt like Ty liked Westbrook. I think it was Lawrence Frank that wasn't a huge fan of Russ. But when you go to this year's playoffs, because throughout the season, I think Ty had some bad games, but overall he was fantastic. He did a great job motivating everybody. And, we've had some pretty good locker room harmony in the majority of the years, I'd say, with Ty. The 2 years that come into question a little bit were 2024 and 2023. But as far as the adjustments in this series, I think maybe he waited a little too long to start Nico Batum. He played Chris Dunn a little bit too much. So but in game 2, he adjusted well. He adjusted well in game 2. Game 3, it looked like we had completely outcoached them. We're running circles around them. So do I think his adjustments are good enough? I mean, yes. I think, does he make mistakes? Of course. But, I don't hyper-analyze every other coach's every move the way I do with Ty because I'm not, I'm not a fan of other teams. I'm a Clipper fan. Then the other question you ask is, throughout the entirety of this past season, I heard Ty Lue in several interviews say the team must play faster and get into sets quickly so that they can get into their second, third, and fourth sets with time still on the clock. Yeah, their secondary action. And then in parentheses, this guy wrote, Harden never did that. He walks the ball up most of the time. So is your problem with Ty Lue or is it with James? Because that's just James. You expect, look how much he's handling the ball. And again, when people always say he's handling the ball too much, does anybody ever consider that this is what he wants to do? This is how Harden wants to play. He's not played differently. It's just the volume of it all. So we knew that going into this season, if we're not going to have Kawhi, we're not going to have many other ball handlers, but it's just going to give James Harden a bigger role because he sacrificed shot attempts in 2023 and touches to some degree. 2024 to some degree. But he still has the ball in his hands more than anyone on the team. And this year was way more than anybody on the team. So that's the way he wants to play. So it sounds like your problem is more so with James Harden than it is with Ty Lue. And to say Ty Lue's offense does not generate easy buckets, I beg to differ. When we had Kawhi Leonard, we were generating a lot of good shots. So it's on James Harden and Kawhi. Your stars will dictate everything. We're not going to have a motion offense around these guys. I don't know what people think is going to, why that do people even consider that? So overall, I think Ty's adjustments are fine. Could he be better sometimes? Absolutely. Could he have been better in this past series? Absolutely. The decision to leave those guards in the last possession of game 4, we were a little too married to Chris Dunn. That matters. In game 1, we seemed a little casual with Kawhi and Zoo's minutes, sitting them out for too long. But at the end of the day, I think it came down to the players more than anything, more so than Ty. But that doesn't mean Ty's exempt of blame. This guy said that I don't think Ty Lue should be culpable in any way. I think he absolutely should be. I think everybody should be. I am not a believer of guys being exempt from blame unless they really do what I expect from them. And I don't think anybody else dictates that. I have my expectations of players. Has nothing to do with their contract, but I have my expectations of players as somebody who watches the games. So yeah. And I do think Ty Lue deserves some blame, just not more than the players. But coming up, going to talk about the players themselves, the roster. Hey, this guy included some names. Could we get those names? I'm going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. It's finals season, which means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. I always, order DoorDash. I was ordering DoorDash way too much after what happened with my house. It was just, but with Dash Pass, it made things a lot easier. And I've used the, NBA 50 discount when Steph Curry dropped like 60 against the Magic and then the Grizzlies. So thank you, Steph. So here's the play. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the next day. With a $20+ order and code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, so let's talk about the roster, right? The Clippers roster. Now, someone said, or this guy said, I blame the players tremendously, but he said, but listening to you, I get the distinct impression that you don't think Ty Lue should be culpable in any way. I just clarified that. Said, I hear you say you blame Kawhi the most for the series loss, even though he was by far best player in terms of production. I agree with that as well. Although I think if it's a Zubats has an argument, given the defense. Clearly, he could have been better, he says, but to say you give him the most blame smacks hate to me. It's not hate, it's the way I evaluate the game. So, because I think he deserves the most, because I think that he shoulders the most weight. No, I don't think, okay, the most blame is this. How about this? The most blame is Norman Powell, but I guess my expectations of Norman Powell just aren't that high. It's just the expectations I have for Kawhi. It's just I didn't expect to say he could have been better. I thought he was going to be that guy, and it was everybody else I would have to worry about. I thought he was going to average 28 to 30 points a game, and I know there was double teams and whatnot. But again, I said I would be down to break down the footage with people because they are questioning what I'm seeing on the court, and I'll tell you that there are some ways that we could have gotten more shots up. We as in Kawhi Leonard. So I don't blame. The thing, it's just the way I view basketball. It has nothing to do with Kawhi and hate. I mean, you can go to any other series and in NBA history and we can talk about it. And I can tell you, a lot of times I just think it starts at the top. If you think that your superstar player didn't do enough, well, then you start there and it ends there, kind of. But yes, you need other guys. You do need other guys. And Ty Lue's one of those guys. So again, we win as a team, lose as a team. But anyway, so this is the type of some of the names that this guy mentioned. How it could be better. Sign Bobby Portis. Now, here's the thing about Bobby Portis. He's 30 years old. He's a bucket off the bench. He gives us some toughness. He's got a player option for $13.5 million this year. We'll see if he opts out or into that. Is he going to get more? I don't know. He might be able to, but can we afford more? We're going to use the taxpayer mid-level on him. I don't know. How much money will we have left after that? These are questions that I need somebody that's better with the cap to come on and help me with. But I would love to have Bobby Portis. But you said Bobby Portis, Al Horford, Karis LeVert, and Tyus Jones, along with trading away Norm, Drew Eubanks, and Kobe Brown. So, I don't know. I mean, who are we trading those guys to? Because you named a bunch of guys on different teams. So that's a little strange. I don't think Al Horford's going to leave Boston. I think he's going to retire as Celtic, so I would take that out of there. But Bobby Portis would be good because he gives us a backup 5 option, but he's not a good defender off the bench as a backup 5, but it gives us better than what we have. And then Karis LeVert, I mean, if we're going to have Bogey and Karis LeVert, I just don't get the point of that. I think we should have one guy off the bench that can relieve Harden. We're going to have Chris Dunn probably coming off the bench if we get a power forward. And then Tyus Jones we don't need, Tyus, Karis, and Bogey. I don't think that's good. And then sign Ben Simmons too. I don't know. The suggestion of the roster was Zoo, Kawhi, Harden, Bogey, and Portis as starters. I don't know if I want Bogey starting. And that's a little I don't Portis at the 4, I just think that he's gonna get attacked in pick and roll. We want a guy that can switch 1 through 4 for today's NBA. That's my thought. But maybe we can go somewhat differently with that. I mean, it's not like the Cavs. I mean, it's not like Evan Mobley always switches when he's playing at the 4. So, I mean, it's not a terrible starting 5. But our bench, you have Horford, LeVert, Tyus, Batum, Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., Miller, Christie, Simmons. So, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rotation players besides Ben Simmons. That's an 11-man rotation. It's a little much. And that Jordan Miller's like your 12th or 13th guy. So, I think that's a little much. I would love Bobby Portis, but I want a power forward. Oh, yeah, he is a power forward. So there you go. But I need another backup big as well. I know you mentioned Al Horford, but I just don't think that's feasible. So that's my opinion, is that Ty Lue, is he overrated? No, I don't think he's underrated either, though. I think he's overrated by some and underrated by some. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people's criticisms of Ty Lue, though, are very largely about today's NBA, and they don't realize it, you know? The stagnant offense, the just running pick and roll, runs, no plays. No, it's simplified offenses with spacing that give you much better reliability of getting good shots as opposed to what we used to do in the past, which was, mainly playing out of one-on-one. And then maybe some more off-ball movement off that one-on-one. But a lot of early 2000s and 90s from what I've seen. I'm not, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything about the 90s because I haven't seen it enough yet. But like early 2000s was isolation and stand in space. Today it's pick and roll, stand in space. But there are some very interesting sets that get some off-ball movement going while there's a strong side action, and you'll have like weak side action as well to distract the defense, which can be very hard to guard. But those are sets that are usually called after dead balls and whatnot, or, when it's slowed down. You still have to have your transition offense, your, semi-transition offense where it slows down, but it's not like a dead ball. So the players are dictating things and getting into things. So that's on the players. And so a lot of this stuff that people are saying is more about the players, in my opinion. And here's the thing. I'm not like married to Ty in the sense that if we fire him, would I cry? No, I wouldn't be that sad. But I don't know who's a better fit for this team for what they want to do, which is keep Kawhi and Harden happy. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. By the way, check out my latest episode with Lauren Rosen, our own sideline reporter. It's always special when we get somebody from the broadcast on the show. Lauren was good enough to give us 45 minutes of her time, so please check that out. And yes, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get us to 8,000 subscribers. You can listen wherever you get your podcast. Remember, if you can't watch on video, you can always listen wherever you get your podcast. It started out as just a podcast first. And of course, YouTube, Dime Dropper channel. Subscribe there as well for more on the NBA and LA sports. And of course, the age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.